Hello and welcome to the latest Halls Wine Guide. I'm here in Bristol to do an exciting wine tasting, but unlike our previous tastings, everything we're going to do today is Greek wine. So we've got 8 wines to taste, so it's worth sticking with this because not only do we have 8 amazing wines to taste and to learn a bit about Greek wine, but we also have a great offer because the wines are all from vinagogo.co.uk. and we have an offer, and if you stick with me for a few minutes I'll give you the discount code so that you can save 10% on all Greek wines if you use that code from vinagogo.co.uk. So you can see the wines here that we're running. These are the wines that are available. We're going to taste all of these today, so although I may sound vaguely coherent now, if you stick with me in an hour or so I may sound a little less so. But we're going to work our way through them and do the best that we can. And these wines from Greece are from all over Greece. And we'll talk a bit about the different winemaking areas of Greece as we go through the program today. But you'll have wines that are from the islands of Greece, wines that are from the mainland of Greece, and wines that are from the Peloponnese. So we'll talk about Greece and the history of winemaking, but it won't come as a surprise to any of us, I think, that we are talking here about the wines of the gods, literally. These are the wines that came from the mountains where the Greek gods lived. These are the wines that were some of the earliest wines that man made and that man drank. So we're talking about an extraordinary history of winemaking, and we'll touch on that as we work our way through these wines. Now, as you know, this is a live stream. So I am here live in real time, and there's a very significant risk that things are going to go wrong, which is another reason to stick with the stream as we work our way through it. So as we start today, we are going to go bang into our first wine. I'm going to pour a little bit of that to start with. Here we go. Let's pop in our first wine, and then I'll show you the bottle and talk through what we have here. This is our first wine from vinagogo.co.uk. And this is a Nicolaou Organic Kidonitsa from 2022. So Kidonitsa is a little known grape, but a very fine grape that is grown in the Peloponnese. So it comes from a very an ancient winemaking area, and it produces a wine that not many people will have heard of. This grape is 100% of this grape, you can see here, because of my red desk, it's beginning to look a little bit rosé, and that's worth bearing in mind because we are going to taste 2 great rosé wines a little later on. But starting here and using a piece of white paper, which I recommend if you're doing a bit of tasting like this at home, you get to see the colour properly. And when I do that, I can see that this wine is, and you probably see against my shirt there, that this is a white wine. So let's have a little look and see what we've got here. We have very nice pale lemon colour. It's a super clear wine. This is a beautiful looking wine. And just looking there, it doesn't have some of those very rich, dark colours that you might expect from a very ripe Chardonnay. And that's going to be something else we'll touch on, that you might expect that the wines that come from somewhere as hot and sunny as Greece were all very rich, very ripe, very dark wines. And actually, of course, you're talking about a country that isn't just the south of Europe and hot, it's also very mountainous. So the altitude of vineyards is an important factor in a lot of the winemaking here. So here we're talking about an area in the Peloponnese that has hills, and so the grapes are harvested at different altitudes during the harvest to make sure that they're all perfect for the winemaking. And this estate has been here since the 1930s. But in 1999, it went organic. So what we have here is an organic wine. And as we go through, we'll talk a little bit more about how modern winemaking, organic winemaking and low intervention winemaking is becoming typical of Greek winemaking. So your image of mass market cheap wines from tourist holidays 20, 30 years ago is very wrong when you're looking at modern Greek winemaking. We're going to be doing today a story of discoveries of old varieties, of investing in new technology to make wine from these new varieties, from these ancient varieties. So new style wine from very old and traditional grape varieties. And this is one of those. So this Kidonitsa, and I'm sure we're going to get some messages in from Greek people telling me that my pronunciation is atrocious, and for that I apologize at the beginning, and we'll do so again. But now I'm going to give this wine a little taste. So I'm definitely picking up some citrus fruits there, maybe some richer citrus fruits, perhaps grapefruit, lemon. I'm getting some rounder, some richer fruit, maybe fig notes in this as well. It's a very fresh, very appealing nose, this wine, and it looks like a light style of wine, and the bottle sort of indicates that it might be a light style of wine, but actually I'm getting quite a rich, fresh nose here. So I'm suspecting now that this wine might be a little bit bigger than the bottle suggested to me when we first looked at it. Oh, that is a delicious, fresh, rounded wine. If you have images in your mind when I said Greek wine of some sort of heavy, over-oaked, overripe, or maybe even wine with pine resin in it, a sort of Retsina idea of white wine, you are very far from the mark. What we have here is a beautiful, fresh, supple wine, and I've still got the finish now. So much more weight in this wine than that bottle suggests to me. Absolutely delicious wine. Now I have some winemaker notes here. I'm going to have to ask our assistant Jamie to also find my reading glasses, which I think I've left in the office when I came into the studio. That's the first magic of live streaming right there. Save that moment for the future. But I'm just reading here. So the Nicolaou family in the area of Duramani, which is in the Peloponnese, as we said, have planted in and grown this variety and are using modern winemaking techniques to make it. And so this is grown on the slope, and the wine was harvested at the end of August. So it's quite an early harvest, this, which is an indication, of course, of how far south it is. They were picked by hand, the grapes, and they were cooled, and the skin contact was at 8 degrees for 10 hours. So let's have a little think about what we mean by the skin contact. So if you simply pick grapes and crush them, then you get the must, the juice from the grapes, and you can of course ferment that, it's got the sugar. But one of the tricks of great winemaking is to allow those skins to have some contact with that must after you've crushed them, or indeed the whole grapes. So there are lots of methods for making wine once you pick the grapes. It's not all the same. So you can crush whole bunches, you can crush individual grapes, you can allow them to sit in that under their own weight, you can crush them. There are lots of methods. So what modern winemakers do is experiment and find the way that will bring out the best characteristics in the wine that they're making. And what we have with this family business here is a new generation of modern winemaking techniques brought to the old family winemaking estate, which is why they went organic and why they've started low intervention methods. And I've talked quite a lot about that, and I hope I haven't bored you, but I'm doing that because, like with several of the wines we've got today, we're going to come back to this vineyard with one of their red wines later on in the stream. So this is a good time to introduce our team who are going to taste the wines with me. And remember, if you want to join a tasting gang on one of our shows, then just drop us a line. You've got on the social media there, you've got all the places to drop us a line, drop us a message. And if you've got any questions, please do that as well. So you can drop us a line at any of our social media accounts. We'll pick those up and try and deal with the questions there. But as I finish each of the wines and we move on to the next, I'm going to pass the bottle on and we'll get that down to join our expert tasting gang. Hi, gang. So they're all down there ready to taste. So what we'll do is we will whisk the bottle out of the studio here, get it down to the tasting gang, hashtag tasting gang, who will have a go and we'll get some idea about what they are tasting themselves. So Jamie, if you're around, could we get this bottle here? down, and it will magically get itself into the tasting gang. Here we go. Come on in. Hi, Jamie. Thank you for that. So if you could whiz that down to the tasting gang, let us know what they think. And I will, actually, before you do that, could you pass me the next white wine and the glass to go with it? There we go. This is, that's it. Perfect. Thank you very much. Here we go. And we're beginning, I think we're beginning to get a method here. Let me pop the wine there so you can have a little look at it before we move on. I move on with my notes to the next wine, and the stream continues. So, this is exciting now. We are moving away from the mainland or the Peloponnese of Greece and out to the islands. So, what an exciting place to make wine from. If you visited Greece, like many of us, you will have found that wherever you go in Greece, there are more local varieties than you could possibly remember the names of. And historically, they often ended up in blends, or the grape names weren't themselves particularly prominent on the labels if they were there at all. But as these new generations of winemakers and newer winemakers have arrived, they've started thinking, this is interesting. We've got grape varieties that are unique to this island, this location, this place. Can we get a wine that takes all of that terroir, as the French would say, all of the qualities of where they're grown, and get them into the bottle? So this is very interesting because this is a very recent winemaking family. These are a British couple who moved to the island of Syros, and so this wine is from an island in the Aegean. But this is even more interesting because the grapes have come from Paros, from another island, and they are brought over by boat to be made in the winery. So this wine has a real story. This is Monemvasia. So this is a very unusual grape from Greece, which is grown on one island, shipped in small crates to another island where it's made in quite small volumes. I've got a note here, the annual production of this was only 2,100 bottles. So there are only a couple of thousand bottles of this in the world, and we're going to taste it now. And of course, if you want to buy some, depending on how we get on with the tasting, then if you go to vinagogo.co.uk, you'll be able to buy this wine and you will get a 10% discount, because it's time for me to announce today's offer, which is that if you go to the vinagogo.co.uk website, you will get 10% off if you put in the code GREEK10. So if you put in the code GREEK10, it should be on the screen. If you put on the code GREEK10, then you will get 10%. And that 10% is not just the wine we're about to taste now. That 10% is off all Greek wines available on the website. So now let's go on and taste this wine. And I can tell you a little about it, about the Ussira Winery. So here we go. Let's have a little pour of that. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Ooh. So I'll pop that back there. So if you've been watching previous streams, you'll know that we're learning step by step how and where to put things to get you the best shots. I think I've nailed that this time. So there we go. There's the bottle. This is made by the English family, which Edward and Eileen moved to Syros, where they have built a winery and built a very high quality wine business, which is again about low intervention and about exhibiting the best qualities of these individual grapes. This grape here is Monemvasia, so feel free to Google along as we go. This is Monemvasia. This is from 2022, and this is from an island in the Aegean Sea. Just looking at that, I've got my same thing here. Just get my white up so I can have a good look at the colour. If you go to a wine tasting and you wander around with a piece of white paper everywhere you go, people will all think you're an expert. It's a great cheat trick. I should add at this point, I'm not a wine professional. I'm just an enthusiastic amateur, happy to share some of my passion for wine with you. So here we go. Again, a very pale lemon. This is a very light, pale straw. I don't think this is a hugely alcoholic wine. It's very, as we say, light in the legs, if you like. So when I'm putting the wine to the edge of the glass and then coming back down, the amount of alcohol is a very rough indication from the way that that liquid hangs on the edge of the glass. So this feels a lighter style. It's got a lovely pale straw colour. It's not as lemony as the last wine in colour. Let's have a go on the nose here. So while I have a look at this, let's maybe check in with downstairs before I move on and taste this wine and find out how they've got on with our last wine. Are we able to bring up the guys downstairs? Yeah, guys, you have got there the Nicolau Kidernitzer from 2022. How are you getting on with it?
I think we really like it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I find it quite fruity.
What did you expect
kind
from
of
a Greek wine? Were you expecting something a bit heavier and more weird?
Potentially, because it says it's like dry white wine, so I didn't think it'd be as light.
Excellent, excellent. Well, you enjoy that. I'm going to taste the next wine, and then we'll whisk this one down to you as well. So we'll work our way through the wines there. Right, so here we are on this, the Monemvasia from Ozira Winery. I'm getting a more vegetal nose on this. I'm thinking more kind of green beans, some of those sort of vegetable notes, maybe nuts, hazelnuts perhaps. Okay, I love it when a wine does this to me. That I was tricked. I was tricked into thinking I was going to get a very light, fresh citrusy wine. And there are citrus notes there, but I'm also getting butter, I'm getting fig, I'm getting maybe apple or quince, something in that space as well. Maybe persimmon. I feel very pretentious saying persimmon, but they had them in Aldi not long ago and I bought some. So now I'm an expert in persimmon and I'm tasting it in everything. But yeah, I'm getting those fruits here. This is a much richer, more supple white wine with a long finish than I was expecting. This is absolutely delicious. And remember, only 2,100 bottles of this made. So if you want to get one for yourself with a 10% discount, you need to go to vinegogo.co.uk where the bottles are waiting for you. You better get them before I get them. This is absolutely delicious wine. So now let's see if we've got our system moving on smoothly. I'm going to get this bottle passed on down and we will move on even more smoothly to our next wine. So brilliant, Jamie, thank you very much. You bring that one, yep. We're just going to open the next wine and then we'll pass this one down. So while we're doing that, let's talk a little bit about Greece and Greek winemaking and what's happened with winemaking, because the history of wine and where it came from starts probably somewhere around the Black Sea. So somewhere in that Eastern Europe, southern Eastern Europe, people started fermenting grapes and discovering that produced alcohol and a liquor that would last longer and have a jollying effect on you. That became tied up with rituals, it became tied up with early ideas of the gods and the divine. Wine was a very important part of rituals as well as daily life. So of course at the beginning of historic and ancient Greece, wine was a part of the culture there. Thanks ever so much, Jamie. I'm going to pass you that one and lose that glass. Thank you very much. And we will move this one. I'll pop this over here. So that winemaking is a very important part of that culture and history. But you're also talking about an area with a warm climate, and one of the secrets to great wine producing is temperature control and managing different parts of the process and being able to do it consistently year after year after year. And so part of that process meant that all over wine producing ancient world, different grapes and different varieties and different techniques grew up to try and make the wine better, to try and make the wine more consistent. And in some places that worked and those wines became famous, but in other places they made pretty ghastly wines. And they also made wines that were very inconsistent and would change not just from year to year, but even after you made them, because they didn't have perfect bottles to seal them in either. So wines were a very different and variable thing. As the north of Europe and the New World started making wines in much more consistent ways, some of these southern areas found it very difficult to copy that. And so for people of my generation, there was a sense that the further south you went in Europe, the more iffy the wines became. And the further north in Europe you got, the more high quality and sophisticated the wines became. And that is something that has changed so dramatically in recent years, that these are great examples of that. That those ancient varieties that got lost into random blends under communism in the former Yugoslavia, for example, or in mass-produced wines that took vines and grapes from everywhere in Greece, all ended up in wines of a nondescript quality. But this new generation of winemakers have started bringing temperature-controlled fermentation in steel vats, and the technologies that they've learned at universities in Bordeaux or Australia or America into making those wines. And that's why we got such good wines. So that's enough of that. Let's move on and whiz straight back into our wines. Now, this is interesting because this wine isn't from the Greek mainland or from a little island in the Aegean. This is from Crete. So this is a huge island to the south of Greece. It's an island with mountains. So again, although we think of these southern European places as very hot, we also have a very mountainous area where agriculture goes up and gets into cooler climates as it goes up the mountains, which is very important for what they can produce. When you're in Greece, if you go to a supermarket, you'll often find that a lot of the produce that they sell is from Crete. It's a sort of breadbasket deluxe producer of fruit and vegetables. So it's not really that surprising that it's a big producer of wine as well. And this is one of them. So this is the Douloufakis Daphnios Vidiano. The word that's the grape there is Vidiano. That's the grape. We're also, again, looking at quite a pale colour. So I'm immediately back to pale lemon yellow. There's probably a bit more of a hint of gold in this wine than there was in the others. But again, none of the whites that we've tried have got what you may have expected, which was a deep, over-rich, over-ripe look or feel or taste. These are much lighter, fresher styles of wines than you might have been expecting. Very different nose to the other two. This is much more floral than the other two. I'm getting maybe jasmine, certainly mint. It's got quite a sort of fresh crushed herbs nose to it. So this is really interesting. I'm loving this. The nose is fantastic. I'm looking forward to my first taste of this. So this is the Douloufakis Daphnios Vidiano from Crete. The grape is Vidiano, and this is a much tighter wine. Much higher levels of fruit acidity in this. This is, if you're a Sauvignon lover, this would be an extension into that direction for you. It feels a little stronger than the other two. I don't know if I can see that in here at all with the legs, or perhaps. This is a more vibrant, stronger, fresher, more acidic style of wine than the other two. Has a very nice finish as well. I've got a gooseberry kind of note at the end there, which is probably what's making me think about the Sauvignon direction. Yeah, I've got very sort of fresh green fruit notes in the finish there. This is our third and final white wine, and all three have been quite distinct and different. This is the most zingy of the three that we've had. So that's good. If we can, I think I will get this one passed on down to the tasting team and check how they've got on with the previous wine and see if they liked the Monemvasia from Ossira as much as I did. Just a note while we sort that out that if you want to pick up any of these wines, you need to go to vinagogo.co.uk, pop in the code Greek 10, and you'll get a 10% discount on all Greek wines. Right, if the guys down here can hear me and we can bounce over to them. Hi there, how are you getting on with the second wine?
Yeah, I think we really like it. I really like sort of how subtle it is. It's definitely not overpowering. I don't know what you thought about it, Amy.
Very fresh.
Yeah.
Big fan.
If you guys were in a pub or bar and you were ordering a white wine, is there a great variety that you would instinctively be going for?
I don't think we know that much about wine. So we're not sure. But I mean, to be honest, probably this from now on.
Yeah, very pleasant.
Well, let's see. So we've got one more white wine coming down. So let's see, maybe do the two side by side. I've always found that's a really good way to decide which way you like them. So maybe we can do that. And then, have any of the three of you been to Greece?
I have a few times.
Yeah?
Been to Crete a couple times.
So you've been to Crete. Well, that's really interesting because the wine I've just sent down, or about to send down to you, is from Crete. So we'll see if that brings back memories of holidays on the beach. Let me pass that on. Jamie, there you go. That's on its way down to you. And now we come on to the controversy. For those of you who followed me on wine for a while, you'll know that the next wine is a controversial one for us to be tasting because it is a rosé. And I have very strict rosé rules, which I am about to breach. I can hear the crew are dying laughing in the background here. So I have very strict rules if you're going to drink rosé. There are 3 Hall's Wine Guide rules for drinking rosé. You need to be overseas, outdoors, or in shorts. Now, it's a 2-tick rule, so any 2 of those work. And I am not overseas, I am not wearing shorts, and I'm not outdoors. And I'm about to taste a rosé. So I can hear the comments coming in because I think these are very important rules. But on this occasion, I'm prepared to breach the rosé rules to try another wine from the Douloufakis Daphnios vineyard and winery in Crete. So this is one of 3 wines from Crete that we're going to try today, all of which are from the same winemaker. So here we are. I'm going to pour a little bit of this. That's nice. I don't know if you can hear that noise. It's always a good noise to hear. To make sure I've got that pointed the right way for the camera. And we're going to talk about this wine because rosé is very interesting and lots of people are a little bit sniffy and dismissive about rosé wine. And there's a right and a wrong to that. There are lots of wines that are made very cheaply, easily mass market rosé that don't have a lot to say for themselves. But there are others where winemakers have thought very carefully about how they make them and how they get this colour. Because, as you probably know, we've got white grapes and red or black grapes. Different languages speak about them differently, but the red or black grape and the white grape. Now, the inside of both of those grapes is white. So you can make white wine from red grapes. So champagne, there's lots of champagne that's only made from red grapes, from Pinot Noir or Pinot Meunier, and lots of champagnes is a blend of both of those with Chardonnay. So it means that if you simply crush a black grape, you can make a white wine from it. The way in which you make a red wine is to leave those skins in contact with the wine or with the must as it starts its fermentation or beforehand, in order to seep some of that colour from the skins into the juice to get the colour. So, of course, thinking about that, you could simply take a red grape, leave a little bit of skin contact, then take them out and then make the wine. You could make a rosé that way. You could make a red wine and a white wine, and you could blend them and make a wine that way. You could actually even just add red wine colouring to a white wine. There are lots of ways in which you could make a rosé wine. But what this winemaker has done is take a mixture of white and red grapes and crush them together and leave the skins in contact for a few hours, then take the skins away and make the wine as a single wine. So this wine has been a wine since the beginning, since it was grapes. It hasn't been created by a mix or a blend later on in the process, and that's very interesting. So a lot of thought's gone into that. And what's interesting is that the 2 grapes they've used are both the white wine we've just had and a red wine that we are going to have. So we've had the Vidiano, which has just gone downstairs for the tasting gang to have a go with. But those grapes were mixed with another red wine that we'll come on to later on, those grapes, in order to make this rosé wine. So this is quite an interesting wine. It's got a story. I love wines with stories. Just having a look at the colour here. Now this is a really good example of a funny way to describe a colour of rosé. It's one you'll see in the books, and I don't often use it, but it's onion skin. If you think about that brown colour, pinky brown colour that you get on a Spanish onion from the supermarket, if I look at this against my white here, it's absolutely that colour. This is onion skin colour. It's a beautiful, clear colour. There's nothing cloudy about it. It's a very clear wine. And then looking at the edge, I'm trying to see how quickly that colour dissipates as it gets to the edge of the wine to get an idea of the concentration in it. And I'm getting quite a lot of colour right the way to the edge here. So I'm thinking this is going to be quite a rich wine with quite a lot to say for itself. On the nose, I'm getting peach, apricot, those type of soft fruits squeezed. That's quite distinctive. Maybe a touch of pear drop, that type of nail polish remover sort of note. That sounds like a criticism. I don't mean it in a bad sense. Okay, so now I've looked at the wine, I've smelt the wine, I'm going to taste the wine. Well, that's a lovely fresh taste. I'm definitely getting that peach flavour. Maybe getting something darker, maybe prunes. It's definitely in that space. I'll have a little look at the notes. Next time Jamie's around, can we find those reading glasses? Because this is going to be, I'm going to be doing this again. So yeah, my memory's not too bad here. It's 20% Vidiano and 80% of the Liatico, the red grape that we're going to taste a bit later on. They talk about dried jasmine, red fruit, star anise. Interesting. Yeah, maybe. Cherries, yes, absolutely. There are cherry notes in this. I think that's a good call. This is a wine that is light enough to be drunk on its own, but would be absolutely delicious with a seafood lunch, particularly if you were overseas in shorts and outdoors. You know, what a perfect wine this would be if those rules were true. That's most. We have Psychic Crew. My reading glasses were in my pocket all the time. That was my time. So, my goodness, look at this font. It's just got like 3 times bigger. That's fantastic. There we go. So, yeah. So these. We're on the island of Naxos. So this is the next wine. Sorry, we're back here. Let's stick with the right wine. So it was a shock suddenly. Now I can read. So here we are. Yeah, so this is the Cretan wine. I just wanted to see if we got anything about the altitude. But I think this must be grown somewhere up on the hillsides in the area of Daphnes near Heraklion in Crete. It's that mix of the red and white grapes. And they say it will be very good with a creamy texture like carbonara, or elevate your enjoyment by pairing it with a lobster. Well, I don't think there's anything that isn't elevated by being paired with a lobster. So on that note, we'll pass the first rosé down to the tasting gang, and we'll check in and see how they got on with the last wine. So let me pass that one down, and we shall move on to the next rosé. So we've done 3 whites. We're going to do 2 rosés, and then we have 3 reds to finish. That's great. Yeah, so that's brilliant. Let me put the wine there. While we do that, let's check in with the tasting gang. Hi, guys. How are you getting on?
It's very nice. It's lovely, very drinkable.
So did it bring back memories of holidays in Crete?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay. So let's have a look at you guys tasting and see how you do that. So we're going to go through the steps here. So we need to get you a piece of white paper. I'll get Jamie on that immediately. So first thing you want to do with your tasting is to take your glass and ideally hold it against something white so that you can really see a true colour and then grade it against the other wines if it's lighter, darker. Yeah, perfect. Exactly. There's something white. Brilliant.
There we are.
So you could do that. Have a look at the colour. And then you want to get your nose in and have a smell and see if you can pick out any fruits from that. There's quite a good aid to that if you're doing this at home. It's just Google a tasting wheel. And there's quite a good thing which lots of people use now that just gives you keys. You start at the centre of the wheel and work out, and it will help you find the words and the ways to describe and give you some clues to start trying to smell and taste the wine yourself. So have a good nose there. See if you. That's it. Look at the tasting gang now, and then have a taste. So the purpose of doing that is you'll start to learn more and more about the wine as you go. And by the time you taste it, you've already got a sense of whether it's a big wine, a little wine, or whether it's off, in which case you don't need to taste it. This wine isn't. So let's move on to our second rosé. Here we go. So this is interesting. Look at the colour. This is a richer rosé. And we are going back now to our little island winery, which Edward and Eileen run. They moved there a few years ago and started a winery from scratch. And this is made from a grape called Foggiano. Say that very carefully. Foggiano is, again, a little-known grape, which for years would have disappeared into bottles and blends without very distinctive awareness of the name of the grape. But here now it's being made as a grape itself. And the vineyards where this grows are on Naxos, and they are shipped across to Syros, where they are made into this beautiful looking rosé. So this is, well, now rosé of course means pink in French. This is pink. This is a pink wine. It's a very light, beautiful pink colour. Again, you know, as I look to the edge, it's not disappearing into white too quickly. It looks like there's some decent flavour and weight in this wine. I can see here from their notes that it's been whole bunch pressed for up to 5 hours. So we talked about that. So the whole bunches are pressed together for 5 hours. That's where the colour is coming in, because as you press a grape, it won't have much colour and life to it. This is interesting. This is more tropical. I've got melon, pineapple, tropical fruit, maybe even lychee flavors in this. It's a rich, rounded wine. I'm now getting a bit of a strawberry finish there. Maybe orange blossom. This is lovely. This pink, maybe almost copper pink. It's that copper color wine. It's quite distinctive. It's not a bland, dull rosé, which some rosés are a bit bland and dull, which is why they've become outdoor lunch wines. But this has got quite a lot to say for itself. Lovely. Let me have a quick look at the notes. While I do that, let me remind you that if you want to try some of these wines, you just need to go to vinegogo.co.uk, pop in Greek 10 as a discount code, and you'll get 10% off any Greek wines. And if you have a look, we've got a whole range of wines that are available, and these are just some of what's available from vinegogo.co.uk on their website. These are the white wines, the rosé wines, and then the red wines that we still have to come. So the wine that we are tasting now, you've just seen, that's the Osira Rosé there. That was from the vineyard in Syros. It's a small vineyard, and they take grapes from the other islands around and in their modern winery produce wines that show off the best style that they can of these individual varieties. So what we have here is an explosion of new winemaking in Greece, which is bringing old varieties from the history of wine, the history of the gods, back as new style wines with lots to say for themselves. And this is a great example of that. So let me have another sip, if you don't mind, Jamie, and then we'll let it go down to the tasting gang. Now, I'm going to get over the guilt about drinking this indoors in long trousers in Britain. But you can feel free to comment on the wine, comment on my tasting of the wine, ask questions about the wine, or of course you can disagree with me about the wines. Feel free to do that. So here we go. Thanks ever so much, Jamie. There we go. We're on to the first of our red wines. I can see immediately that that's taking us back to Crete. There we go. Let's pop that there. So this is the Douloufakis vineyard. This is the one in Crete. The grape here is Liatiko, and this is a wine that began, a wine business, a winery that began in 1930. But like many of these vineyards that we've talked about, the next generation has come in and brought modern winemaking techniques to the winery. The altitude, that's what I was looking for, wasn't I, earlier on? The altitude, it's on the notes here, is 350 meters. So we are talking about 1,000 feet above the Mediterranean. So although we're very south and very hot, the vineyards are compensating for that by growing higher up the mountains. I've spent a lot of time recently in Sicily, where you have the same, the hillsides of Mount Etna. As you go up them, you start to have these wonderful vineyards. So in these very hot places in southern Europe, as you start to go up the hills, you'll see, often quite distinctive, you'll start to see the bands where wine is produced. And in some areas, you'll see that the lower down is okay quality, a bit higher up is sort of medium quality, and higher up is the best quality. You see that even in Burgundy. If you drive along the motorway in France and you see the vineyards going up the hillside next to you, you'll often see, if you go into the maps and have a little Google, that the lower quality vineyards are towards the bottom, and as you go higher up to get more altitude, more temperature variation day and night, you'll start to get higher quality wines. So here we are, which is what's happening in Crete with the Douloufakis Daphnios Liatiko from 2020. So a little bit of age on here as well. This it's a classic red vinification, but it's in stainless steel tanks. So the modern way of making wine means that it's not open to everything. It's there with stainless steel, and a lot of the stainless steel vessels are double jacketed. So there's water around in a double layer of stainless steel around the outside of the tanks, which means that you can control the temperature at which you ferment the wine. And of course, if you go back 30, 40 years, it would only have been able to be fermented at the ambient temperature in the room, which meant it varied considerably, but you couldn't therefore work out how long the fermentation would take from one year to the next, because it depended so much on the ambient temperature. So the more you can control the environmental conditions in which you make the wine, the better and more consistent your wine is likely to be. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about modern techniques coming into Greek winemaking. The other thing here is that this wine has been matured in French oak barrels of different sizes. So there's quite a lot of thinking gone into how this wine has been made, blended and bottled. So I'm quite looking forward to this. So here we go. Let's pour some of this. Okay, so I'm intrigued already just looking at that colour. As I was just chatting with the tasting gang on the last wine, one of the first things you want to do is to look at it. I'm doing that now against my white there. And I was again expecting a much darker, more intense colour, but actually I'm getting a more Pinot Noir look to this. you can't finish all the wines, guys. You got to leave some for the crew.
They're not empty. They're not empty.
Do you want to talk to me about the last wine there? So that was the second of the rosés. How did that go? I think you've got 2 rosés there. How are they getting on?
Yeah, I think we're really enjoying them, to be fair, aren't we?
I think that's my favourite of the rosés.
The second one, the Osira.
Yeah,
yes,
that's lovely.
I think that's an outstanding wine. I really enjoyed it. It's got, if you think it's going to be a little bit light in style, it's not, is it? It's got quite a lot to say for itself. When would you drink a rosé?
Outside in the sun on a Friday after work.
Perfect.
Or in filter.
That's completely in compliance with the rosé rules. Well done, team. So that's the rosés. I'm going to get you some red wines in a moment. So I think we've got some hula hoops somewhere. So if you want a snack, just ask Jamie. He's got I've seen a big bag of hula hoops tucked away here somewhere. So good stuff. Now let's start on the Daphnios Liatico. So remember, we're in Crete now, where with a wine that I was anticipating would be a very rich, dark, intense-looking wine. It's looking a lot lighter in style to me. I've got a little touch of brown coming in at the edge here, which again is sort of talking to me about Pinot Noir. Oh, so that's got very big cherry notes for me straight there, and herbs. It's red fruits. It's maybe some strawberry in there. That very kind of strawberry ice cream sort of flavor. That very intense, dark strawberry flavor. Interesting. So again, we had this with a couple of wines ago, didn't we? Where the clues I'm getting from looking and the nose are already confusing me. I'm not getting what I was expecting. So I'm really looking forward to the taste of this. Wow. That's got a lovely, strong tannin to it. There's a black tea note. If you think of, if you leave a black tea till it's cold and you taste it, you get that quality that sort of makes your mouth pucker up. That quality is the tannin in tea. Now, tannin in wine is a very important ingredient in these red wines. It comes from the skins and the stalks, and that quality balances with the fruit acids in it to make a more complex, structured wine. Now, wines at the cheaper end of the scale tend to avoid having tannins because you need to age them a bit, otherwise you just get that tea effect. But as you let the wine age a little more, you start to get those tannins softening and they balance with the fruit. And that's what's happening here. This is still very fresh. It's got good shot of fruit acid in this. So it's not if you like white wines, you're not going to be scared off by the acidity of it. The tannins might surprise you. It's a very mature wine. It's a bigger taste than the lighter look of the wine was leading me to expect. It's a very distinctive, jammy almost nose. Well, that's a nice opener. Our first red wine from Crete. So I'm going to pass that on. We've got 2 wines to go, so please don't go away. Let me pass those on. We'll get those down. We'll go back to the tasting team in a moment. In the meantime, let me remind you that throughout this live stream, you're able to comment, please post, please like and subscribe. And of course, if you want to get a discount on any of these wines, you need to whiz over to vinagogo.co.uk, put Greek10 in as a discount code, and you will get 10% off any of the Greek wines on the vinagogo.co.uk website. So you can see we've got a lovely range here of wines, from the whites that we tasted at the beginning to those 2 very nice rosé wines. Tasting Gang went big on the Osira there. That was a very popular one. This is the wine we've just tasted, so you can have a good look at that. That's the Daphnios, that's the Cretan red that we just tasted, the Liatico. And then we're moving on to the two wines which we are about to taste. So a little tease for you there of the two wines to come. Let me just pop this over here. There we go, so you can have a little look at this. Okay, so the bottle's now, look at that, there you go. So the wine's making its way, it's getting faster and faster the way that wine's getting down there. That's good work. That's a nice healthy tasting measure. There we go, so working our way through the wines. Any thoughts on that red? Are you a red wine drinker normally, or are you being forced to do this for the tasting?
I do like a red wine normally. I think usually I use them in sort of pastas and chilies. But I do like a red wine. I enjoy it sort of a Wednesday night kind of thing.
I like a Merlot.
Yeah.
That's my go-to usually.
You like Merlot? Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the wine that's coming up might tickle your palate then when it gets down to you. Did you get some hula hoops?
Yes.
We did.
Perfect. That's what matters. So let's move on to the Liapis Rapsani. This is. We've now made our way up to the mainland of Greece, and we are up. Well, we talked about the gods at the beginning, didn't we? The wine of the gods. And here we have a wine that is from that part of Greece where the gods lived. So we're up close to Mount Olympus here. If you've ever flown, I mean, I've flown a few times from Athens up to Thessaloniki. So if you fly from the capital of Athens, the capital of Greece, and you go up to the capital, if you like, of northern Greece, of Macedonia, as you make that flight, on the left, if you look out, if you're lucky, you'll get an amazing view of this snow-covered mountain. And lots of people don't expect to see snow-covered mountains in Greece. But that gives you an indication of how the hillsides there will cool, because, of course, it could be 40 degrees at sea level, but you've got snow on the top of the mountain. So as you go up, you're going to have pieces of land with different types of climate. And that's what's so exciting here. This area of winemaking has lots of different altitudes, and the grapes will be collected from lots of them. This is also a wine which is a blend of some classic varieties. Zino Mavro is the predominant one, and that's a very important grape. That's one of the most historic and most successful red wine grapes that's grown in Greece. Difficult for us to say, but very famous grape there. And this, of course, is made by an exciting maker who is using as little intervention as possible. So when you're growing grapes, obviously you could throw chemicals at them to make sure that you didn't have any pests, and you could throw chemicals at the process of winemaking to make sure you didn't have any nasty bacteria arriving at that point either. But lots of winemakers believe that doing that stops you getting the best out of the ground, the terroir, and the best out of the wine itself. This is an example of this. So this is a low intervention wine. So this is a spectacularly made wine. You can see that even from here. The colour I'm seeing of this is a beautiful deep crimson. It's a lovely looking colour. Let's take my glasses off. They're getting in the way there. I've got my nose into that. I'm getting damsons and plums, but I'm also getting sort of tobacco, maybe cigars, a cigar box or two thrown in here. I'll pass the bottle out, laughing gallery, and you can see if you find cigar boxes in a minute. This is very reminiscent. So I love the wines from the Rhone. So the Rhone in southeast France, beneath Burgundy and before you get to the sea, the area there along the river has some of the best winemaking on earth. And this, both in its colour and its nose, is reminding me of a Syrah or Shiraz, you'll see it sometimes called in the New World wine. I've got a peppery note coming there with those plummy fruit flavours. That's a beautiful, beautiful nose. Let's have a cherry. I'm very much getting black cherry notes on that nose as well. Yeah. Oh, that's delicious. Chocolate. That's chocolate. Screw the cigar box. That's a chocolate box. That's rich, dark cherry, chocolate, black tea. That is a beautiful wine. That's 2019. I think that's even got some time left in it still. That's so we've got a wine here that's already got 5 years on it, and I suspect that is still a wine that's going to reach an even greater peak than I'm getting now. This is an outstanding wine. If you like those Northern Rhone style wines, I think this is one that is going to leap out at you. Okay. Wow. Yeah. I mean, any idea that you have about Greek wine being old style, overripe, too alcoholic, not well made, completely blown apart by the wines we've had in the tasting so far today. These are world-class, beautifully made, small produced wines. The production of these wines has, even the biggest production, which is the Daphnios wines we've tried, is in the kind of 25,000 bottles a year range. And some of these wines are in the 2,000, 3,000 bottles a year range. So these are craft wines made, and to be fair, that's reflected to some extent in the price. But if you're going to get something that's made with low intervention techniques, some of these wines have been organic, some of them are near organic in the way they're produced, very sort of biodynamic techniques, and then you get these very special qualities. But this is an absolutely delicious wine. I'm going to pass this one so that it goes first to the gallery, so they can tell me if they can find any cigar boxes or chocolate boxes, and then straight down to the tasting gang, who will go back on. Guys, are you ahead or behind now on a wine? Have we tested have you all had a good taste of the red?
Yeah.
This is a first red. We've only had one red so far.
And how are you liking
That's
that?
lovely.
I really like it. It's like something you'd have before dinner, maybe with some olives, just to kind of start your meal. It's really nice and like refreshing.
And I imagine, I don't know, but I imagine you probably imagined that a Greek red wine like this would be a huge, heavy type of red wine. It's not that style, is it?
No, it's really light and really refreshing, and I really like it. It's probably my favourite.
Yeah. I'm not much of a
okay. Well,
red
we've only got 2 more to go,
myself.
so hang on in there, and we'll see if we can change your mind. But that's good to know you've got a favourite there. Let's pass that on, and let's see if Chris in the gallery can find any cigar or chocolate boxes in that before we go on any further. And that takes us on now to our final wine. It's a bit sad, that, isn't it? Last wine. We are now a pure organic wine to finish. And I think that, let's pop it here so you can see it. There we go. Which, given everything we've just said about low intervention wines, organic wine production, small vineyards making wine of quality, of wine that's made at height, this has all of those qualities. So it's going to be very interesting to get on to the tasting. So we have here a wine which is made from the Aggiorgitico grape. I'm not going to say that again. You can Google it. But that grape is a classic grape, possibly the finest of the red wine grapes of Greece. And this is another wine from the Peloponnese. So it's made in Nemea. As you cross, I don't know if any of you have been to the Corinth Canal, but if you head a little bit southwest of Athens, you have the 19th century canal that was dug through the rock so that you could get from the Aegean to the Ionian, just going through this extraordinarily beautiful canal. If you cross the bridge there, where you can bungee jump, the other side of that bridge is the Peloponnese, and that's the big fingery shaped bit of Greece that sticks down west of Athens. This is at the top of one of those sticky out finger bits. That's where this wine is produced, one of the most famous wine producing areas in Greece. And there are wine producing areas all over Greece, on every island and in every area of Greece. But this is one of the primary areas. And this is a wine which we drank a wine from the same maker at the beginning of our tasting. And we are now going to, which was our Kidenitsa, the white wine that we started with. So we started and finished with Nicolau wines from Nemea in the Peloponnese. This is a 2019. I said I wasn't going to say the name of the grape again, didn't I? I'm going to try again. Agiorgitiko. I have a lot of Greek friends, and I can't imagine what my inbox is going to look like after this. But that wine and that grape are famous, and it is grown at altitude. And I'm just going to look and see if I can see on my notes here the altitude at which this is grown. So the altitude, 350 meters. So again, this is grown at 1,000 feet, 1,000 feet up. Only 6,000 bottles of this. Annual production of 5,500 bottles. So this is a small production of a high quality wine by a vineyard that went organic in 1999. So these were first movers. These were early biodynamic, early organic winemakers. So that's interesting. They're not late to the organic party. So let's pour some and see how we get on. Here we are. Oh, oops. Oh well, a little spill there. It's not bad. The first one is my 8th bottle, so I've decided to forgive myself. So here we are. Oh, I'm so annoyed with myself now. Just clear that. Here we go. Let me just clear the bottom there. No, I can clear it up myself. It's a live stream, not real telly. There we go. So, right. Here we are. Let's have a look at this. Oh, what a beautiful crimson colour. There's a grape that was originally from Bordeaux, was rediscovered in Chile, Argentina, about 20 years ago, Carmenere, which is where the name carmine comes from, for that colour. This is that. What a beautiful colour. Very distinctive. And that colour is consistent. As I lean the glass away, I'm seeing that colour. There's a very thin area where the colour disappears and it becomes white. So I know I've got quite an intense wine here. There's a deep amount of weight and colour in this wine. That's not surprising. I read here that the extraction lasts for 15 days. So this has got huge qualities from the grapes in. They haven't just squeezed it and quickly left the skins in to make an easy wine. This is a wine intended to age and to have great qualities. We've got a whole different set of flavours here. This is blackcurrant, sloes, mint. This is a rounded wine. If you have a more traditional palate used to Bordeaux wines or some of the New World wines from Argentina or South America, we've got a Merlot lover, haven't we, in the tasting gang. I think this is the wine that may be a winner down there. This is an incredibly sophisticated wine. You'll be able to serve this in the grandest of company, and people will be going, "Oh, this is very interesting. What is this?" Oh, what a lovely wine to end on. Let me see if I've got any more interesting facts on my sheet that I can share with you here. Yeah, they talk about an aging potential, so we've picked up on that already. Aging potential of 10 years. We have, again, the grapes were picked by hand. Alcoholic fermentation, open top stainless steel tanks. That's interesting. In which the extraction lasts for 15 days at 24 degrees. So they really tried to get as much of the local atmosphere and the local flavour into this wine. There's a question I'm intrigued about, which I can't give you the answer from the sheet here, but about the yeast that they use, because the open top invites some local yeast into that. So it will be quite interesting to understand how they either prevent that or welcome it. But this is a delicious wine. It's our last wine. I will pass that down, talk you through the end of our wine tasting, and then we'll have a last visit to the tasting gang and wish you adieu. So, we have worked our way in today's live stream through 8 wines. I think if we have a look at them, I can talk through what the wines were. We'll run quickly through them and then tell you how you can buy them or how you can join the chat to discuss them. So those wines, which you can see there, we started with the Nicolau Organic Kidonitsa from 2022. That was the wine whose bottle looked very light, but was actually a bigger wine than I was expecting. We then moved on to the Ozira Monemvasia, which was a favourite of mine. I loved that wine. That was an outstanding wine. It's the second one there. Quite delicious, and that was made at the Ozira winery on Syros by Edward and Eileen, a British couple who moved there. We then moved on to our third white wine, which was from Crete, which was the Daphnios Vidiano. That was a popular choice down with the tasting gang, and again, although it's very hot country and a hot island, was from vineyards at altitude. We then went straight on to another Daphnios wine, which was their rosé, which was a blend of both the red and the white grapes, and it was fermented and made together as a single wine. That we rated, again, I think that was a favourite from one of our team on the tasting gang. We then went to the my favourite of the rosés, which was the Ozira. So that is our little island again. And this was the one where the grapes have come from the island of Naxos, and they are taken in baskets from one little island to another to be made into wine. 7,500 bottles of this wine made every year. We've had one of them here. If you want to get one yourself, I'll tell you how to do that with a discount in just a minute. We then went on to our red wines, of which there were 3. We tasted the Daphnios, so back to Crete, and this was the Liatico. That was a delicious red wine. It picked up some Pinot Noir look and feel, and I thought that was an interesting wine that would be extremely good to have with a rich or very spicy food type combination. It'd be very good with kind of spiced barbecued meats, roasted lamb, that type of thing. So that was the Douloufakis Daphnios Liatico. I'll be speaking perfect Greek by the end of this. We then went on to this wine here, which was the Liapis Rapsani. This was made with indigenous yeasts, another minimum intervention wine, and this wine comes from up near Mount Olympus. So this is the home of the gods. This is the wine that they would have drunk. At least that's what they'd like us to believe. That was delicious. We enjoyed that wine very much. That had black tea notes, strawberry, cigar box. And then we went on to our final wine, and this was from the Peloponnese. It was another Nicolau wine, the same as our very first white. This also from vineyards at altitude, and it was very carefully made with open tanks, a lot of skin contact to give us the rich flavour, and this was a wine that we thought would have significant aging potential. So those are our wines. If you were interested in any of those wines, then you need to go to the source of these wines, which is the wine shipper and wine merchant, vinagogo.co.uk. Great thanks to Kevin, who's the boss there, who has been helping us with the tasting. Those wines are all available, but actually he's very generously said that the discount, Greek 10 is the discount code, that discount applies to any of the Greek wines on the vinagogo.co.uk website. So if you've enjoyed any of the live stream, please like and subscribe. Please follow us and look out for our next live stream. If you're a winemaker and you'd like us to do some wine programs about you, you can drop us a line as well. But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed that wine tasting. I've made it through. Before we finish, I just want to go downstairs and make sure that the tasting gang are still in one piece. How are you down there?
Me, because Mum
Yeah, we're all good.
All
We're
good?
all good. We're really enjoying
Oh, look, you've got all the
Yeah,
wines there. If I ask you each now
we've
to
ordered
point at
them.
your favourite, each of you point at your favourite now.
We've ordered them, but I guess we all have different opinions.
You've already ordered it.
it.
Fantastic. So we've had a success with our tasting gang. Which one was that? Can you just show us the bottle that was the favourite there?
I think it's this
Let me
one
see
here.
what that was. I think that was the Lipianis Rapsani, the red there. Yeah, so that was the Liapis Rapsani. So if you want to follow the tasting gang and order the same wine, then it's the Liapis Rapsani from 2019. It's on the vinagogo.co.uk website. So on that, thank you very much to our tasting gang. Thank you very, very much to vinagogo.co.uk. Thank you to the production team here. I'm going to go and see if Chris has found his chocolate boxes or his cigar boxes yet. And finally to Jamie, who's managed to keep me supplied with the right wines right the way through this live stream. I've enjoyed doing it. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. Thank you ever so much. That's us done.